Okay. How's that? Should be audio. Okay, let's try this again. So cut off the first minute 4. Okay. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Yesterday, I came out. I spoke to you guys about Andrew Yang calling out Nancy Pelosi for not accepting the White House's the $1.8 trillion counteroffer. Many Americans obviously are struggling during the pandemic, and her response was simply, that the offer just doesn't go far enough that the White House proposed. Now, to be fair, of course, Republicans also rejected the offer, and the criticism to Andrew Yang was, why are you calling out Nancy Pelosi? You should be focusing on the fact that the Republicans also aren't accepting the offer, or that they're not accepting her offer, her initial offer. Well, she made an appearance on Wolf Blitzer, and the questions were asked of her directly. We're going to go ahead and take a look at that clip. We're going to talk about some updates since then, and basically, I told you guys that you want Andrew Yang. If you're an Andrew Yang supporter, if you're a supporter of the Humanity First movement and the way Yang thinks, and potentially going towards the route of getting a UBI, you want Andrew Yang to always be seen on the right side of history. You want him to be the person who is making an issue when there isn't one. You want him to be the one who's outside first. One of the reasons why Bernie Sanders has a lot of credibility is that there's a track record of him always, being on aligning with certain perspectives consistently over a long period of time. That does well for you later on in your career when you want to say, hey, I've always supported this issue, or this is always where I've stood. I have been consistent. So while some will argue that Yang is, he's not in the position to be doing what he's doing, I support his effort because I don't think there's any real way for him to get agency in the Democratic Party in a rather short period of time other than doing something like this. If he's going to become a player with the Democrats, he's going to have to either do a lot of favors for a lot of people, make a lot of promises, and ultimately not be the candidate who you supported in 2020, or B, force them to recognize him because he is the person who has the people behind him. He finished with like 6% at its highest level, we'll say 6% nationally. Unless he can come in and say, I can get 12 to 15% of the vote without the Democratic establishment, there's no other way other than doing something like this, where he has the will of the people, he has the support of the people going into it, and he raises his profile by making such an issue. Let's take it away. We're going to play Nancy Pelosi. Oh, yes. Also, if you guys are following me on Twitter, I appreciate that. Yang was called a sexist. Yang was called a sexist by Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And I tweeted, that is like the ultimate deflection. Not because I don't even care if you can call whatever, call him a sexist. I'll give you that he's a sexist. You know what? I know he's not, but I'm going to give that to you. What does that have to do with him calling out Nancy Pelosi for not doing the will of the people? Him being a sexist, because I'm going to give it to you, because I'm not even going to argue that's a ridiculous statement, but we'll just say he's a sexist hypothetically. Fine, he's a sexist. What does it have to do with getting Americans checks during the pandemic? Nothing. That is a deflection, so you don't have to talk about the actual issues. Now you're making Andrew Yang the subject of no real criticism because no one takes it seriously. Americans are starting to see, especially when I go through this whole story, the veil is starting to really come off this thing. So let's take a look at Nancy Pelosi. Let's let her speak to Wolf Blitzer. I'm going to go into about 1:14 into the clip. So there's a first part where she starts talking about the bill. And then this second part, they're going to get into, the real meat and potatoes of this thing. Oh, sorry.
But even members of your own caucus, Madam Speaker, want to accept this deal. $1.8 trillion. Congressman Ro Khanna, for example. But let me just quote Ro Khanna, a man you know well. I assume you admire him. He's a Democrat. And he just said this. He said, people in need can't wait until February. $1.8 trillion is significant and more than twice the Obama stimulus. Make a deal, put the ball in McConnell court. So what do you say to Ro Khanna?
What I say to you is, I don't know why you're always an apologist, and many of your colleagues apologists for the Republican position. Ro Khanna, that's nice. That isn't what we're going to do, and nobody's waiting till February. I want this very much now because people need help now.
Now, pause it there. I want this now because people want help now. Put a pin in that because we're going to come back to it in a second.
But it's no use giving them a false thing just because the president wants to put a check with his name on it in the mail, that we should not be doing all we can to help people pay the rent, put food on the table, to enhance benefits, that they don't lose their jobs if they're state and local, we're talking about the consequences of a pandemic, the symptoms of a problem that the president refuses to address.
But you know,
and that is the coronavirus.
We know
that is the coronavirus.
Come on, Nancy, blowing up my channel saying that. Listen, I thought she just said that what's most important is helping people, because then she followed that up with, because the president wants to put his name on checks, this is a false thing. No, money is a real thing, okay? When people get real money, they can make real decisions to solve real problems in their lives. What you're doing, this is not a real thing. This is politics. This is nothing that anyone can tangibly take to the mortgage company and say, hey, Nancy says that the president's playing politics right now, so we're going to go ahead and pay you with this for right now, and we'll come back next month with actual cash. No, see, that's not a luxury that most Americans have. So, Nancy, you're really letting people down. And let's let her walk off with this nonsense.
Problem out there, but there are millions of Americans who have lost their jobs. They can't pay the rent. Their kids need the food.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to get done.
$1.8 trillion, and the president just tweeted, stimulus, go big or go home. He wants even more right now, so why not work out a deal with him, and don't let the perfect, as they say here in Washington, be the enemy of the good.
Well, I will not let the wrong be the enemy of the right.
What's wrong with $1.8 trillion?
Well, you know what? Do you have any idea what the difference is between the spending that they have in their bill and that we have in our bill? Do you?
Okay, I'm sorry. That's the only part of the clip I have. That's from GOP War Room. So it goes on. But, I mean, that's it. That's really her position. You know what I mean? The bill's not good enough. The spending's not good enough. It's too much discretionary spending, yada, 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 yada. I don't care about the people. Not right now. Not until after this election's over. Bobby, you make an absolutely excellent point. Yang lit the fuse for this. This is why I was telling you guys, you don't want to be adversarial towards someone who's doing what they're supposed to do because you think Nancy Pelosi, seriously is looking out for the best interest of people. No, she's not. She's looking out for the party, looking out for re-election, looking out for making sure the president doesn't get to put his name on checks. Trump, who last week said that he was done with negotiations, now coming back out with a counteroffer, now coming back out with go big or go home. Nancy, this is on you. Thank you, Andrew Yang, for speaking up and creating this conversation, making us actually speak about this and really shedding a light on this moment, because it's going by very quickly. Now, the beautiful thing about this is because, again, as I said, you want Andrew Yang to call out Nancy Pelosi because that's the only person he really has, real reach to. Because actually she did follow this part. Sorry, she did follow this up by kind of insulting Yang by saying, I've been doing this for years. Andrew Yang, yeah, he means well, but this is how it's done. I'm the one who's handling this. So we're gonna remember that, right? Mitch McConnell. This video is called "McConnell Laughs at Stimulus Talks" because, he actually does. He came out on Tuesday and said that the Senate will vote on a targeted relief bill next week that will include more aid for small businesses hit hard by the fallout of the pandemic. The Senate is out of town next week after an outbreak of blah, 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 blah. When the full Senate returns on October 19th, our first order of business will be voting again on targeted relief for American workers, including new funding for the PPP. McConnell said in a statement referring to the Paycheck Protection Program, which, of course, many people who should not be receiving funds from the PPP benefited from, many of which are elected officials, which we're going to talk about shortly. McConnell, during his stop in Kentucky on Tuesday, said the bill would be highly targeted and authorize around $500 billion. The bill, he noted, would include money for schools, hospitals, and protections from the virus-related lawsuits. Yeah, that doesn't sound like checks. It doesn't sound like bolstering unemployment. We'll have to see what that's actually going to be. We now see where everyone stands, right? This is clear now, right? We now have a Republican response. If I was Mitch, I would have said anything. I don't know what he was thinking. Again, who is giving these Republicans terrible, terrible advice right now? You got to lay low, Mitch. You got to avoid the cameras. You're not taking any press conferences, no emails, no phone calls. You go to your home and you hide there. You do not come out and say something so stupid in this moment where you see Nancy Pelosi is now got a nice big spotlight put on her because of Yang's statements. Now, Blitzer, I don't know where Blitzer came from, but all of a sudden he's interested in this. So I'm with it. So there's his $500 billion offer. And then we have McConnell versus Amy McGrath, I believe is her name. In a debate, the conversation about pandemic relief comes up. Let's see what Mitch has to say about it.
The House passed a bill in May. And the Senate went on vacation. You just don't do that. You negotiate. Senator, it is a national crisis. Yeah. You knew that the coronavirus wasn't going to end at the end of July. We knew this. I just think you've got to. And here's the thing: if you want to call yourself a leader,
Bill,
if you want to call yourself a leader, you got to get things done. And those of us that served in the Marines, we don't just point fingers at the other side. We get the job done.
I can't find his response to this. I cannot find his response to this. But what I can see is this man is having a field day. This is clearly a joke to him. Whatever he's about to say, it isn't anything more significant than his statement when he said that he's going to be proposing $500 billion in response to the White House offering 1.8 and Pelosi asking for 2.4, 2.6. He's not even in the ballpark. So now we know where McConnell stands. Now we know where Pelosi stands. Now we know where Yang stands. We now know where the president stands. So I just want to make it 100% clear to you that your elected officials do not care about you at all. Okay? Because everyone who I just pointed out, other than Andrew Yang, is an elected official, and their interest is winning the election or not giving the victory to another side, to the president or to the Republicans or to the Democrats. None of these things have anything to do with the lives that you live out here on Main Street. Your government is failing you, and it's happening every single day that we talk about anything other than when these checks are coming out and how they're going to be dispersed. Not to mention that's been a whole cluster as well. They seem to have struggled figuring out how they were actually going to get those funds out. I know several states lag behind others, and this thing just did not really work in the most efficient way it could have. But, interesting. Mitch says PPP. We definitely got to get some money into the PPP because this is that typical Republican, the businesses create opportunities, the businesses create jobs, so we definitely have to put money there. But the PPP has kind of been a bit of a disaster, right? A little bit, right? Let's get some let's get a little bit of summation of what's happened with the PPP so far.
And they still can do so through August 8th, Poppy.
That's very good to know. Or their families or businesses were among those who benefited from the Congress or their families or businesses were among those who benefited from the Paycheck Protection Program or the PPP program. That's the economic relief program created to really help small companies struggling during the coronavirus shutdowns. Lauren Fox is on Capitol Hill. Look, it's a really good thing that we finally have this transparency. For weeks, people have been calling for it. The list is interesting in terms of who got money and how much. What stands out to you?
Well, and this is just a fraction of who got this money, Poppy. Remember, the only data we have with names attached to it is the loans that were totaling more than $150,000. We know that the average PPP loan was smaller than that. Therefore, we don't have all the names of potentially politically connected individuals that could have gotten these loans, but a couple of very well-known folks who were part of businesses that got these loans, including several members of Congress, and I want to highlight just two of them. Vicki Hartzler, whose family owns some farm supply companies in Missouri. Those businesses got $480,000 in PPP loans. Mike Kelly, a Republican from Western Pennsylvania, he owns car dealerships. 3 of his car dealerships got PPP loans. Now, when I asked the lawmakers' offices about what their rationale was for needing this money, Mike Kelly's office said, we helped employ 200 people in Western Pennsylvania. And, those businesses were struggling, and we were able to keep people on payroll because of the money we received through PPP. I also want to mention just some other notable and maybe surprising foundations that received some of this money, including Americans for Tax Reform Foundation, which, of course, is a well-known group in Washington, D.C. that has fought to lower the burden of taxes for Americans and bloated government spending over the last several years. They got a PPP loan between $150,000 and $350,000, as well as the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation got a loan between $350,000 and $1 million, and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute got a loan between $350,000 and $1 million. This just goes to show you the wide breadth of individuals and businesses that got these loans. One thing I want to note, Poppy, is that there's still $130 billion available. So if a mom and pop shop owner at home is watching and they wanted to apply for a loan, they still can do so through August 8th.
So that's where we are. And then, I want to just throw this out there as a nice reminder. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about all of the people, all of these celebrities who are getting involved in making sure that funds are available for people to, pay the restitution that they might have from any time they they served in jail in certain places. I think Florida primarily. LeBron James and what's his name? Mike Bloomberg and others teamed up to create this fund to pay people's fines up to $1,500 so they could have the right to vote. We got, former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger getting out and saying, how much would it cost to get these polling places reopened that have been closed? We got the NBA reaching out and saying, we're going to, following the little boycott they had, we're going to make sure that NBA arenas become polling places for voting. So much effort has gone into getting everyone to do things related to the election. But as Americans struggle, the question isn't how can these people reach out and make it more feasible for Americans to live. No, they just want to figure out how they can get your vote. The same as the elected officials, how they're using you as political capital. All you are is a tool to get votes. And I'm not telling you that to be mean. I'm just telling you that because that's what you are, right? This is what we're seeing. They could do anything else with this time and this effort. And rather than, figuring out, okay, let's work with the GOP or let's work with the Democrats or let's work with the White House to actually get some legislation together so we can get to get some type of relief to Americans. Let's make sure, rather than do that, they're focusing on how they can make sure they can, really shore up that vote. Just really make sure that they crush this election or prepare for re-election, because they care way more about that than they will ever care about your day-to-day lives and how their policies are affecting it. So with that said, I just wanted to make you aware of the latest episode of You're Just a Political Tool. And just tune in for the next version. I imagine October 19th is going to come. It'll go. We'll have a vote. We'll have a no. We'll have a yes. Probably a no, right? But, it'll probably pass the Senate, probably get shot down in the House, and right back to square one. And then we'll have an election. And then you'll forget about this because we don't really have any other answers. So with that, I thank you guys for coming through. Get to work because the government doesn't have anything for you. You guys have an awesome day. I'll see you guys soon.